Hello guys. So this is the last section that we have to cover as a video of interview experience of PWC. So the last section contained the interview questions of React.Js, where you can find these are the list of questions have been asked. So first is like, what are the React hooks? This is the basic question or a very common question has been asked for all the React.Js developer. So what are the React hooks? Explain in details. Second is like, how does the use state works with empty and filled array in React. Third is use memo and use callback, real use case. Fourth is like, we have to write a custom component which can show the count in a label with two buttons, increment and decrement. Based on that, click on button, the counter values getting increased. And the last question is JavaScript. So this is the common JavaScript variable have been created. First is where I equals to 10. Second is b equals to 20 in a string. And the console.log a plus b, a minus b, and a into b. Okay. So I will cover all the questions. So I hope like I have I have created a separate GitHub page where I have added the complete set of React interview question for each interview experiences. Okay, so we'll go through all the questions one by one. Okay, so this is the public repository that you can access also directly. React interview hook, .NET with Nikhil, React.Js interview hook handbook. You can try to search this on Google, you will find it. Okay, I am going to share all the interview experiences questions in this GitHub repository. Okay, so the first question was like, what are the React hooks, and explain in detail. So like, while working with the React hooks, it is generally it is nothing but a special function introduced in React which allow developer to use states and lifecycle features inside a functional component without writing a separate class component. So common React hooks is use effect, use state, use context, use memo, use callback, use ref, and use reducer. These are the common React hooks while explaining. So while working with the as you can see, like, this is the example of use state. So as you can see, like, what I have created a use state variable with initialized value with 0. So whenever I am clicking on the button, every time I am increasing the value of count. Okay, and if you can see here, I am showing the display also. So the moment we clicked on the button, it increased the value of count. The moment it increasing the value of count, it is showing the count value also in the button label itself. Okay, so this is one of the real-time example of use state. Then second question is how use state works. Okay, so what is the next question? So next question is like, how does use state works with empty and filled array. So as you can see, like, this is an variable creation for use state with the empty array. So empty array is nothing but an initial value, and second is filled array. Okay, filled array is having one object which we have created. So how it works? So it works like, whenever React re-renders the component, like whenever React founds there is a reference or some value has been changed inside the object, that time React re-render the component use state variable. Okay, I have mentioned here, React re-renders the component whenever new array reference is passed to set user. As you can see, like, in the set user variable, whenever the value has been changed of this object, every time React re-renders this component. Okay, what is the third question? What are the real-time use case of use memo and use callback? This is the most important question, has been asked in many interviews. I'm going to share you the multiple interview experiences also in upcoming videos. You will find the same question has been asked for React developer. So real-time use case of use memo. So for better understanding and for better remember, just understand, use memo is a React hook that remembers. Memoize means remembers. remembers the result of calculation, or only calculation or only recalculate its whenever dependency changes. For example, as you can find, there is a variable called square of a number where we are using use memo hooks where we are calculating the square of the given number. So if the number does not change, React reuses the previous value only instead of recalculating it. For that purpose, we use reuse memo. What are the real-time use cases? So filtering the large list, sorting the data, or expensive calculation. So if you wanted to make a calculation and we wanted to reuse that calculation every time, we don't want React to recalculate or re-render every time. We wanted to use the existing calculated value. For that purpose, we go ahead with the use memo. Similarly, use callback. So use callback React hook that remembers the functions and prevent it from being recreated every render. React will reuse the same function reference on every time it re-render. Generally, the use case is like passing the function to child components, working with React memo, and avoiding unnecessary re-render. As you remember, like if we are using a use state or use effect inside the React component, so whenever the value changes of these hooks, every time it re-renders the complete component. But if you talk about the function, it prevents from re-rendering every time. So the real-time use cases is passing a function to child component, callback function to child component, then working with React memo and avoid unnecessary re-render. These are the real-time use cases. Use memo and use callback. So it caches a value. Use callback it caches a function. Use memo is it returns a value, and use callback is returns a function. Okay. Easy to remember means use memo means it remembers a value or it caches the value, or use callback means it remembers a function or it caches a function. This is one of the simplest way to understand and to remember use memo and use callback. The fourth is they have asked me to write a component to create a counter component with increment and decrement button. Okay. So if you want, we can try to write also in the notepad. So let me share the screen of notepad. Okay. So this is the screen of notepad and we'll try to write it. Okay. So the question is like, we'll have to write a React component to perform increment and decrement value based on the button. Okay. So let's use state from React. Okay. Then what we are going to do, we can going to create a function that is called counter. Inside that, we'll create one state variable, const count set count. See, writing down this example in a notepad is very important to understand and to remember. It gives us the confidence to write such kind of a code directly while giving the interview. Then create a use state and then assign a value or set a value 0. Okay. Then return. Inside this return, we'll have to write the code. Okay. Let's create a div variable first. Open and close. Inside that, let's use h2 count. Then we'll have to use the counter useState variable. Then we'll have to close h2. Okay. Inside this, let's create a button. On click. Inside the on click, we'll have to provide a method implementation. Set count plus 1. Okay. So this button click is incrementing the value of set count variable. Okay. And now let's give the button name called as increment. Okay. Now similarly, we'll have to create one more button called decrement and set count -1. Okay. Instead of increment, let's create a called decrement and set the value. Simple. Now what we are returning? We are returning here let's close the function, and what we will return default, and we'll give the name called counter. Okay, in this way we'll try to write a component to perform the increment and decrement of set count variable and use that particular count variable in a label. So in this way we are going to try to write the logic. Now let's jump to the React.Js handbook GitHub repo for the next question. So this is the last question I've been asked. So this is the core JavaScript question. So where a equals to 10 and b equals to 20, but 20 in a string format. Okay, check it out properly here. A equals to 10, b equals to 20 in a string format. Okay, now they have asked me to find out the output of, or tell me the output of console.log a plus b, a minus b, and a into b. Okay, so a plus b is very easy. Whenever plus comes, it performs the concatenation. So output I have already printed. Okay, now why the output is minus 10 while working with the a minus b? So ensure that whenever in JavaScript, whenever it comes a minus b, whenever it comes with a minus operator, it converts it to the actual, like the string value will get converted into the integer. Whenever it comes with a minus operator, this string value converted it to the integer value automatically. It behaves like an integer value, and that's why it is printing 10 minus 20 minus 10. And again, when there is a into b, again it will perform a multiplication. It is a simple. Again, you can find the b is in string format. So whenever it comes with a minus and multiplication operator, this string 20 has been converted into the integer 20, and that's why for second console.log it prints minus 10, and for third console.log it prints 200, means 10 into 2, 10 into 20. Okay, so this is the explanation. I hope you got the clear understanding of how what kind of a question I'll be asked in the interview of PWC, how you have to answer and how you have to explain. I am going to coming up with the multiple interview experience in a coming video. Stay with the video, stay with the channel, and please do suggest me what kind of videos you wanted to prepare. Please add a comment in the chat box. And I hope like whatever GitHub repository I have shown you, it is a public repository, can be accessed by anyone. If you think this repository is helpful, you can please provide a star. Okay, this motivates me to add or create a more useful content which will be helpful and beneficial for .NET full stack developer. Thank you.